Hi, I'm Alan Newberg, and welcome to Collective Visions Gallery reopening. So we've been closed for 6 months, and we're delighted to be able to reopen now. I happen to be the feature artist for the month of November, and so I'm going to talk with you a little bit about my show. And I have to tell you that this show is kind of, in a way, a substitute for. So I was scheduled to have a featured exhibit in Port Townsend at the Northwind Fine Arts Center, and that was to be for the month of April, and the show had to be postponed and is now going to be April of 2021. So in the meantime, I am showing you some pieces that would have been in that show, and I'm also going to be showing you or making available the catalog for the Port Townsend show, which is a 54-page catalog and has every example of pieces that are going to be in the Port Townsend show. 3 of those pieces are in this show, and I'll talk about those now. So the most recent of the pieces is this piece here, and this is a portrait in black walnut, carved from a black walnut tree, of the famous jazz musician, singer Nina Simone, and also famous as a social activist. So Nina Simone has always been an inspiration to me, and she grew up in Tyrone, South Carolina, which was a little town up in the Appalachian Mountains, and she grew up poor, but it happened that the town she was in was kind of an artist colony, and there were many artists, people there who were famous worldwide at the time. So anyway, she grew up in this town on literally the wrong side of the tracks, and her mother was amongst other things, a pastor in an African-American church, and so there was lots of music in the church. And Nina learned music very early. She began playing piano at about the age 3 or maybe 4. And some of the white people in the community learned about the singing, the quality of the singing at this church, and they went to see it. And they heard Nina play. And one of the persons that heard play was a classical pianist teacher in the town. And she was so impressed that she offered free piano lessons starting at the age of 7. And so that was how Nina got her start. Nina did eventually, through the help of this piano teacher and her friends, get a scholarship to go to Juilliard in New York City. And then after studying in Juilliard, she got another scholarship to go to the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia. So she was so excited about this that not only was she going there, her family moved to Philadelphia so they could support her while she was going to school. When she got there and they learned that she was black, they didn't let her attend. She was kicked out. So that forced her to go into other ways of making her living. So she became she began playing in clubs, at bars and clubs, and moved into jazz and became she was very good, from the very beginning, and she became internationally famous as a jazz singer. She did eventually meet her life goal of playing in Carnegie Hall, but she was singing jazz, not doing concert work. Let's come back to the catalog. I have the catalog here, and I will be doing a book signing at the entrance of the gallery tonight and on Saturday as well. So the catalogs are $20 a piece, and I'm happy to sign and autograph each one for you if you decide you'd like one. So now I'd like to take you over to another piece that's in the show that has to do somewhat with the origins of this piece. So in my catalog, one of the things that I talk about are sources for ideas, are previous works that I've done myself. And this is an example of one of the source pieces for the sculpture of Nina Simone. So this piece is called The Spine of Black Resistance. And it comes from a catalog from the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which is part of the Smithsonian system of museums. And about the time that I started to do this sculpture. And so this sculpture is made of pieces that are cut off of a previous sculpture, and I was deciding, well, I'm going to see what I can do with these pieces. These are all black walnut pieces, and so I saw this piece down here, and I thought, well, I could use that as a base, and I saw this piece here, positioned it around, and yeah, you know, I think I could make an attachment there and have that. And then I picked up this piece and positioned it, and immediately I had this idea. I remembered that this essay that's in this book. I have an information panel here called The Spine of Black Resistance for this piece by itself. And what the information tells you is that in August 1843, nearly 100 free black men assembled for a conference in Buffalo, New York, and the keynote speaker for that was a man named Henry Highland Garnett, who was a clergyman from New York City, and he said the following things: "Brethren, arise, arise, strike for your lives and liberties. Now is the day and the hour. Let every slave throughout the land do this, and the days of slavery are numbered. Rather die free men than live to be slaves. Let your motto be resistance, resistance, resistance. No oppressed people have ever secured your liberty without resistance." So that thought came into my mind when I started doing the sculpture, and so that's the source of the idea. Okay, now we're going to move to this piece, which is called Entanglement, Seeking Modern Solutions as a subtitle. And this piece is made out of the root of a large madrona tree. So that means that everything that you're seeing here that's moving up in some direction was moving down into the earth. So a root is a lot like the top of a tree with lots of branches, except for they're much closer together and much more compact. In the process of making it, first job I had was really just to clean all the dirt out of it. It had grown in very rocky soil. So there were, big rocks, this big, and some of them were encased in the thing, so I spent a lot of time cleaning it up and prying all of the rocks out, and I thought I got them all out. But once I started with my chainsaw disagreed. So I had to sharpen the chainsaw numerous times. Each thing here, like this was a round root like that, you know, and this was another round root like that, and this was a round root like that, and this like this, and so on. So I took the chainsaw and I began to make those projections of root ends. So this is literally right where the edge, where this cut that was made right there was the cut made by the people who brought the tree to me. I didn't do that particular cut. So it was round. I cut it into sort of slabs, like 2x6s or 2x8s. So it was like a pile of wood projecting in all directions. And so once I got that done, I decided that, there could be holes through some of these things. And then quickly after that came the idea that's really the seminal idea for the thing, and that's the idea of the worst knot or tangle that you ever got in your fishing rod. so that's why I call it entanglement. So the inspiration is a terrible knot, kind of like the Gordian knot in Greek history. And so Alexander the Great, as you know, was going to capture a city, and the officials of the city said that they had this knot that was impossible to untie. And but if he could untie the knot, they would give him access to the city and he wouldn't have to fight a battle. So Alexander took out his sword and whacked, untied it in one whack. And but I would say, modern problems are not that easy to solve.
Where do you get a piece of wood like this?
Well, in this case, it was quite amusing and interesting. I was in the studio working on a different piece of sculpture, and I got a telephone call from a friend, and she said, "My neighbors are taking down a large madrona tree. Would you like the root?" And I said, "What happened to the log?" And she says, "Well, they cut it up into firewood. It's not available." So I said, "Well, how big is it?" And she described how big it was. And I said, "Well, I'd like to come and see it." And went back and hung up and went back to work. And pretty soon I hear a truck pull up. And I go out, and it's the people with the root already loaded in their truck. And they had backed up into my driveway. So I had to decide on the spot, did I want it or not? Now, madrona is known for being a difficult wood to work with. And so I had originally not been certain I was even going to take it, but I decided on the spot to go ahead and take it. I just told you that madrona, I was hesitant to take the log because madrona is notorious for being a difficult wood to work with. And it has several problems. One problem is it's very prone to twisting. If you take a log and cut it up into boards, the boards are all turned into corkscrews. It warps badly. And then, in addition, it has a great tendency to crack or check, as we say in the wood carving business. So it gets checks in here. So as this thing dried, and one of the reasons I wanted to cut it up the way I was describing earlier into these planks was to try to reduce the internal stresses that cause these cracks and checks and so on. So if you come closely here, you can see all of these places that were originally a hole in the wood, a check, a crack. And they were quite deep, several inches in some cases. And so what I did is I took a different kind of wood. It was teak, and I cut it up and made little wedges in it that were sharp and narrow. And then I would put glue in the slot, and then I would hammer the wedges in. And sometimes even just one slot, there's 1, 2, 3 right here. It took 3 wedges to make that. And 2 or 3 more here, and 4 or 5 to fill this one, and so on, the way it was. Up here you can see a place that was absolutely just riddled with cracks, not very big cracks, but everywhere.
That's a light wood you used there.
So that actually, this part is filled with just pieces that were cut off of the piece itself. And you're right, so it does look lighter. So here the wood is not basically a contrasting color. Anyway, in order to do this sculpture, there were so many cracks in it, you can't believe how many there were. I estimate there was at least 1,000 wedges that I had to drive in to make this piece.
Wow. And you have some smaller pieces on this table
I
here.
do. So these are all pieces that have been done very recently. None of them are, there's 4 here in the show, and I may bring in yet another one. But these are all sort of tabletop size ones. Pieces that I cut off, the big ones I always save. I call them offcuts, and these are made from offcuts. And then I just look at the pieces and say, I wonder what I could do with that. And this is an example. This one is the smallest one. This is basically my idea is that this piece of black walnut has beautiful grain.
Yes, it
just
does.
Fabulous grain. And then that I call it sea stack or Pacific sea stack. All of these pieces, these small pieces, are priced at $400